The financial industry has built a trillion-dollar empire on a single devastating lie that you need $2 million to retire. Some advisors whisper $3 million. The most fear-driven push $5 million. They've constructed an entire cathedral of deception around one premise that financial freedom is so expensive, so impossibly distant, that retirement before 65 is reserved exclusively for tech moguls and lottery winners. Here's the truth they're desperately hiding. They're not just wrong. They're engaged in systematic wealth extraction designed to keep you enslaved to employment for decades longer than necessary. Because they're not calculating freedom, they're calculating lifestyle maintenance in the most expensive possible scenario, then calling it the minimum requirement. They're optimizing for their management fees, not your liberation. I'm about to reveal a different number, a number that represents something far more valuable than maintaining your current consumption patterns. This number represents the exact amount of capital required to make employment permanently optional, to transform work from a survival necessity into a voluntary choice, to wake up every single morning and design your day around meaning rather than money, around purpose rather than paychecks. That number is $300,000. Not $3 million, not $2 million, not even $500,000. $300,000. Before you dismiss this as fantasy or financial suicide, before you close this assuming I'm peddling dangerous delusion, let me show you the mathematics. The precise, verifiable, reproducible calculations that the retirement planning cartel has spent decades ensuring you never discover. Because once you understand these numbers, once you see the actual arithmetic of financial freedom, you'll realize you could escape in 5 to 10 years instead of 30 to 40. And they'll lose 3 decades of fees. This isn't optimism. This isn't motivational fantasy. This is cold, hard arithmetic that's been true for a century and will remain true for the next century. And it starts with destroying everything you've been taught about what retirement actually means. The industry's first deception, the lifestyle maintenance myth, the retirement planning establishment has successfully convinced 3 generations that retirement means maintaining your pre-retirement spending indefinitely. If you're consuming $70,000 annually while working, conventional wisdom demands you generate $70,000 annually forever after employment ends. This sounds logical. It's designed to sound logical. It's also systematically wrong because it ignores a fundamental truth about working life. Most of your spending isn't funding your life. It's compensating for your job. Think about your actual expenditures. The expensive restaurant meals because you're too exhausted to cook after a 10-hour day. The professional wardrobe you'd never choose if you weren't selling your appearance to employers. The premium car because your 90-minute daily commute is psychological torture and you deserve something comfortable. The expensive vacations because you have exactly 2 weeks per year to experience life. The entertainment subscriptions and hobby equipment you barely use because you're trying to decompress from work stress during the few hours you're not selling your time. Every single one of these expenses exists because of employment, not despite it. Remove the job, and the spending structure collapses. Suddenly you have time to cook. Work clothes become irrelevant. The commute vanishes. You can travel during off-peak seasons when prices drop 40-60%. You're not stressed, so you don't need expensive stress relief mechanisms. Your entertainment becomes free walks, reading, conversation, creation rather than consumption. The actual cost of a genuinely good life without employment runs 30-50% below the cost of the same life with employment. The retirement industry knows this. They just can't tell you because their business model collapses the moment you understand it. The second deception, geographic imprisonment. The industry's second foundational lie. You'll retire where you currently live. Why? If your job anchors you to an expensive city, why remain after the anchor disappears? Here's what they're not calculating. The cost of living differential between expensive and affordable locations is so extreme that it fundamentally transforms the mathematics of freedom. San Francisco versus Lisbon, 70% difference in cost of living. New York versus Chiang Mai, 85% difference. Seattle versus Medellin, 75% difference. You can engineer a superior quality of life, better weather, better food culture, more time outdoors, stronger community bonds, richer cultural experiences for a fraction of what you're spending in American cities, optimized for work and consumption. The only rational reason to avoid these locations is if you're genuinely anchored by employment or family obligations. Remove those anchors and the entire planet becomes available at prices that make freedom achievable with dramatically less capital. The third deception, income replacement instead of expense coverage. Here's the most expensive misconception the industry perpetuates, that you need to replace your income in retirement. Completely wrong. You need to cover your expenses. These are radically different numbers. During working years, income determines spending capacity, so people conflate the two. But in retirement, income becomes irrelevant. Only expenses matter. If you can live excellently on $18,000 annually, you don't need income replacement. You need $18,000 annually. This is where the mathematics become revolutionary. $300,000 invested conservatively in dividend-paying stocks and low-cost index funds, targeting a 4% yield, generates $12,000 annually in passive income without touching principal. That's $1,000 per month. In the United States, $1,000 monthly represents poverty line existence. In Portugal, it funds comfortable middle-class life. In Thailand, it delivers upper middle-class lifestyle. In Colombia, Vietnam, Albania, Mexico, or 36 other countries, it covers nice apartments, excellent food, comprehensive health care, entertainment, and savings. Not survival, comfort, security, freedom. The financial services industry cannot reveal this because their business model depends on managing maximum assets for maximum duration. If they disclose that $300,000 properly deployed could fund indefinite freedom, you might exit employment at 40 instead of 65. That's 25 years of lost fee extraction. So instead, they sell fear. They display inflation calculators, assuming 40 years of identical spending. They show healthcare projections, assuming you'll remain trapped in America's uniquely expensive system. They present longevity tables suggesting you'll live to 95, requiring 50 years of funding, all designed to keep you working, saving, and paying fees for decades. The real mathematics of freedom. Here's what they're hiding. Take $300,000. Invest it globally across dividend stocks and low-cost index funds. Target 4% annual yield through dividends and safe withdrawal strategies. Result, $12,000 annually, $1,000 monthly. Now relocate to where $1,000 monthly doesn't just survive, it thrives. This means a one-bedroom apartment in safe neighborhoods, excellent food prepared at home with regular restaurant meals, local health care through national systems or affordable private insurance, high-speed internet, modest entertainment and hobbies, regional travel several times yearly. This describes reality in Portugal, Spain, Greece, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Albania, Bulgaria, and at least 30 additional countries. In many locations, $1,000 monthly isn't poverty, it's living well by local standards. Often with superior weather to American cities, better food culture, more walkable urban design, better public transportation, and stronger social fabric. The quality of life isn't worse than American middle class. It's frequently better. The only thing you're surrendering is proximity to existing family and friends, which matters enormously to some people and minimally to others. If you possess geographic flexibility, $300,000 genuinely suffices to make employment permanently optional, not theoretically. Actually, this isn't hypothetical. Tens of thousands are living this reality right now. The Geographic Arbitrage retirement community is substantial and expanding. People who discovered that retirement calculators demanding $2 million were based on maintaining expensive lifestyles in expensive locations, and that completely different mathematics applied with location flexibility. Addressing the objections. Let me destroy the obvious objections because I've encountered every single one. Objection 1. Healthcare costs. American healthcare without employer coverage is financially catastrophic, true. But American healthcare isn't your only option. Most developed nations operate public healthcare systems that are free or low cost for residents. Portugal's National Health Service covers residents, including foreign retirees, for under $50 monthly. Spain offers similar systems. Many countries provide private health insurance for foreign residents at $100, $300 monthly for comprehensive coverage. Thailand's private hospitals deliver world-class care at 10-20% of American costs. A knee replacement costing $40,000 in America costs $8,000 in Spain and $4,000 in Thailand. Same outcomes. Qualified surgeons, modern facilities. Medical tourism is a massive industry precisely because healthcare globally costs a fraction of American prices. The healthcare argument against geographic arbitrage assumes American healthcare superiority, which holds true for cutting-edge experimental treatments and proves false for routine care. For routine care, dozens of countries offer equal or superior outcomes at vastly lower costs. Objection 2. Inflation. Valid concern. A 4% withdrawal rate assumes principal maintains purchasing power. If you're withdrawing $12,000 annually and inflation runs 3%, your real purchasing power erodes over time. 3 solutions. First, your $300,000 remains invested in stocks, which historically appreciate ahead of inflation. If markets return 7%, and you withdraw 4%, your principal grows at roughly 3%, matching inflation. Your $12,000 annual withdrawal maintains purchasing power. Second, most people in geographic arbitrage retirement generate modest additional income. Teaching English online, freelance consulting, small online businesses, content creation. When living on $12,000 yearly, an extra $3,000, $4,000 from occasional work transforms your financial position and requires nothing resembling traditional employment. Third, lifestyle flexibility. If inflation erodes purchasing power by 15-20% over a decade, you adjust. Move to slightly cheaper neighborhoods. Cook more at home. Travel less domestically. The buffer between $12,000 annual spending and survival is enormous in low-cost countries. Small adjustments maintain quality of life even with declining purchasing power. Objection 3. Family and friends. Legitimate concern. Geographic arbitrage means distance from existing social networks unless they relocate with you. For some people, this is genuinely impossible. Aging parents requiring care, young children, deep community roots. If you're truly anchored by unmovable obligations, $300,000 probably won't suffice unless you're in low-cost American locations. But many people overestimate their geographic constraints. Adult children don't require your physical proximity. Video calls and annual visits maintain relationships. Aging parents represent real but temporary constraints. Care can be structured remotely when necessary. Friends drift apart over time regardless of geography. Your friends from your 20 seconds aren't your friends in your 40 seconds. New friendships form wherever you live. The geographic arbitrage community is filled with people who feared isolation and discovered they built stronger social networks in new locations than what they left behind because the shared experience of choosing unconventional paths creates powerful bonds. I'm not dismissing the cost of family distance. I'm saying it deserves honest calculation rather than automatic assumption. It's prohibitive. For some people, it is. For others, it's a trade worth making for decades of freedom. Objection 4. Emergency scenarios. What if something catastrophic happens? What if you need substantially more money? 2 answers. First, you still possess $300,000. It's invested, not spent. If genuine emergency strikes, you can access that capital. You're not locked into 4% withdrawal rates. It's a guideline for sustainable indefinite withdrawals, not legal restriction. If you must withdraw 8% 1 year for emergencies, you do it. Your runway shortens, but you handle the emergency. Second, optionality works bidirectionally. If you leave employment at 40 with $300,000, spend a decade living on $12,000 annually through geographic arbitrage, then decide you want traditional employment again, you can. You're 50 with $300,000 still banked, possibly more if markets performed well, and a decade of life experience most people never acquire. You're not trapped. You're taking a decade-long sabbatical funded by your capital with the option to return to earning if circumstances or preferences shift. Real numbers, real places. Let me make this concrete because abstract calculations convince nobody. Scenario 1. Lisbon, Portugal. 1-bedroom apartment in decent neighborhood, €650, €850 monthly, $650, $850. Utilities, including internet, $100 monthly. Food for one person, mostly home cooked with occasional dining, $300, $400 monthly. Healthcare through Portuguese national system, $40 monthly. Transportation via public transit and occasional taxis, $50 monthly. Phone service, $20. Entertainment, hobbies, miscellaneous, $100, $150 monthly. Total monthly, $1,200, $1,400. Annual, $14,000, $17,000. You're living in a stunning European city with extraordinary food culture, perfect weather, safe streets, walkable neighborhoods, and access to all of Europe via budget airlines. Your quality of life is high by any reasonable standard. $300,000 generating $12,000 annually gets you most of the way there. With a small gap, you close through minimal freelance work or slightly more frugal living. Scenario 2. Chiang Mai, Thailand. 1-bedroom apartment in nice area with pool and gym, $300, $400 monthly. Utilities, including fast internet, $50. Food, including regular dining at local restaurants, $300. Private health insurance, $100. Scooter rental, $50. Phone, $10. Entertainment and miscellaneous, $100. Total monthly, $900, $1,000. Annual, $11,000, $12,000. You're living in a modern city with incredible food, year-round warm weather, world-class affordable health care, strong expat community, and Southeast Asia available for weekend exploration. $300,000, generating $12,000 annually, covers this completely with surplus. Scenario 3, Medellin, Colombia. One-bedroom apartment in Poblado or Laureles neighborhoods, $400, $600 monthly. Utilities, $70. Food, $250. Health insurance, $120. Transportation via metro and taxis, $60. Phone, $15. Entertainment, $100. Total monthly, $1,000, $1,200. Annual, $12,000, $14,000. You're living in the city of eternal spring with perfect daily weather, incredible coffee culture, affordable health care, growing expat community, and improving safety. $300,000 covers this with minimal buffer. Now compare these scenarios to basic middle-class American life. Studio or one-bedroom in Tier 2 American cities like Austin or Denver, $1,500, $2,000 monthly minimum. Utilities, $150. Food, $500 if cooking most meals. Health insurance, $400, $700 depending on age and plan. Car payment or transportation, $300, $500. Phone, $60. Entertainment, $150. Total monthly, $3,000, $4,000 minimum. Annual, $36,000, $48,000. To generate $36,000 annually at 4% withdrawal requires $900,000. To generate $48,000 requires $1.2 million. That's 3 to 4 times the capital requirement of geographic arbitrage for comparable or inferior quality of life. This is why standard retirement advice is catastrophically wrong. It calculates for the most expensive possible scenario and calls that the minimum requirement. The accumulation timeline. Let's discuss how you actually accumulate $300,000 because timeline matters. If you're 25 and save aggressively, $300,000 is achievable by 35 to 40. If you're 45, it's achievable by 50 to 55. If you're 60, the timeline differs, but the target remains dramatically more achievable than $2 million. Here's the mathematics. Assume you can save $2,000 monthly, $24,000 annually. That's aggressive but achievable for someone earning $75,000, $100,000 who lives frugally and prioritizes freedom over consumption. Invest that $24,000 annually in low-cost stock index funds averaging 8% returns. After 10 years, $360,000. After 15 years, $670,000. Compound interest performs most of the work if you provide time and don't interrupt it with withdrawals or panic selling during downturns. If $2,000 monthly proves impossible, adjust the timeline. Save $1,000 monthly, $12,000 annually. After 15 years at 8% returns, $270,000. Not quite $300,000, but close enough that a few years of modest additional work or a slightly lower cost location makes it function. After 20 years, $460,000 well past the threshold. The point, $300,000 is achievable within reasonable working timelines for people with middle-class incomes willing to save aggressively and live below their means during accumulation years. It's not easy. It demands discipline, sacrifice, and resisting the lifestyle inflation that consumes most people's income increases. But it's possible in ways that $3 million is not possible for most people. The accumulation phase in practice. Here's what the accumulation phase actually looks like. You live in low-cost areas or with roommates to minimize housing costs. You drive a used car that you maintain yourself. You cook most meals at home. You work side hustles to increase income. You avoid consumer debt completely. You invest every raise and bonus instead of upgrading lifestyle. You track spending obsessively to identify waste. You optimize taxes through retirement accounts. You avoid expensive hobbies and status signaling consumption. This sounds miserable to people optimizing for present consumption. It's liberating to people optimizing for future freedom. The difference is time preference. If you value today's comfort more than tomorrow's freedom, you'll spend raises on nicer apartments, nicer cars, nicer vacations. If you value tomorrow's freedom more than today's comfort, you'll bank those raises and let them compound. Neither choice is wrong. They're different values producing different outcomes. What I'm telling you, the second path leads to optional employment within 10 to 20 years depending on starting point and savings rate. The first path leads to mandatory employment until you're 60 seconds or 70 seconds. Most people claim they choose freedom, but their spending patterns reveal they choose comfort. The few who genuinely choose freedom and align behavior with that choice discover that $300,000 in geographic arbitrage make freedom achievable far sooner than they've been told. The psychological objection. Let me address the most psychologically difficult objection. I don't want to leave America. I don't want to live in a foreign country, learning foreign languages, eating foreign food, surrounded by foreign culture. I want the life I have just without having to work for it. This objection reveals whether geographic arbitrage retirement is viable for you. If you derive identity and comfort from American culture, American lifestyle, American proximity to family, American convenience, American everything, then no, $300,000 probably won't suffice. You need more capital to fund a more expensive lifestyle. But I'd encourage you to examine whether that preference is deep and authentic or shallow and circumstantial. Many people think they couldn't possibly be happy living abroad, then spend 2 weeks in Portugal or Mexico or Thailand and realize that not only could they be happy, they might be happier. Better weather improves mood. Better food culture improves health. More walkable cities improve fitness. Slower pace reduces stress. Stronger social culture improves relationships. Lower costs improve security. Many elements that make life genuinely good are more available in lower-cost countries than in American cities optimized for work and consumption. The preference for American life is often preference for familiarity rather than preference for superior quality. When people actually experience alternatives, a significant percentage prefers them. Not everyone. Some people genuinely thrive most in American culture and systems, and for them, geographic arbitrage doesn't work. But many people assume they're in that category without ever testing it. I'm suggesting you test it before assuming your only path to retirement requires accumulating $2 million. The experiment? Here's an experiment. Take 1 month. Spend 4 weeks in Lisbon, Chiang Mai, or Medellin. Rent an apartment on Airbnb. Cook your meals. Walk the neighborhoods. Use public transportation. Join a gym. Visit coffee shops. Live like a resident, not a tourist. Track your spending meticulously. At month's end, you'll have data instead of assumptions. You'll know actual costs. You'll know whether you could be happy there. You'll know whether trade-offs are acceptable. For probably $2,000 total, you can test whether geographic arbitrage retirement is viable for you personally. That's the cheapest and most valuable financial planning you can possibly do. Because if the answer is yes, you just shortened your working timeline by 10 to 20 years. If the answer is no, you learn something valuable about yourself and can adjust plans accordingly. Most people never conduct this experiment. They assume they know the answer without testing it. Then they spend 30 years working toward retirement targets based on assumptions they never validated. That's insane. Go test the assumption. Spend a month in Portugal. If you hate it, you lost a month and $2,000. If you love it, you potentially gain decades of freedom. The asymmetry of that bet is enormous. What life actually looks like. Let me describe what life actually looks like in geographic arbitrage retirement because details matter. You wake without an alarm. The first hour belongs to you. Coffee, reading, writing, exercise, whatever matters to you. No commute, no meetings. No emails demanding immediate responses. You decide what to do with your day based on interest and energy rather than obligation. Maybe you work on small projects generating modest income. Maybe you learn languages. Maybe you write or paint or build something. Maybe you exercise, read, and cook elaborate meals. Maybe you meet friends for coffee and spend 3 hours in conversation. Maybe you walk around your city with no destination or purpose. The structure is whatever you create. Some people find this terrifying. Without external structure and obligation, they don't know what to do with themselves. These people are poor candidates for early retirement. They need employment to organize time and provide purpose. Other people find unlimited time to be the greatest luxury imaginable. They have more interest than time to pursue them. They've spent decades frustrated by having to sell 40 to 60 hours weekly to employment. These people thrive in geographic arbitrage retirement. You need to know which type you are before pursuing this path. The way to know, pay attention to your weekends and vacations. If you're bored and aimless without work structure, you need work or you need to develop capacity for self-direction before retiring. If you're energized and engaged when you have free time and frustrated when you must return to work, you'll thrive in retirement. This isn't about age or money. It's about psychology. How money changes. The second thing that happens, your relationship with money transforms completely. When you're working, money is primarily about earning. How much you make. Whether you got raises. How your income compares to peers. Every financial decision filters through income. When you're in geographic arbitrage retirement, living on passive income from invested capital, money becomes entirely about spending and preservation. You're not trying to maximize income. You're trying to optimize spending to maximize quality of life within fixed budgets. This creates completely different psychology. You become hyper-aware of purchase value. A $100 dinner isn't just $100. It's 1/10 of your monthly food budget. Is this particular meal worth that trade-off? Sometimes yes, often no. This doesn't make you cheap. It makes you intentional. You spend freely on things that genuinely improve your life and cut ruthlessly on things that don't. Over time, you develop precise knowledge of what actually makes you happy versus what you spent money on out of habit or social pressure. Most people never develop this knowledge because they're always in earning mode, always able to spend more by working more. When income is capped and fixed, you're forced to optimize spending. This turns out to be one of the great benefits of geographic arbitrage retirement, not just financial sustainability, but the clarity about values that comes from making real trade-offs. Time horizon extension. The third thing that happens, your time horizon extends. When you're working and looking at 3 to 4 decades before traditional retirement, your planning horizon is short. What happens this year, this quarter, this month? When you leave employment at 40 with enough capital to sustain indefinitely, you're suddenly thinking in 40 to 50-year time horizons. What do you want your life to look like at 60, 70, 80? What matters over decades rather than years? This long time horizon changes everything. Relationships matter more. Health matters more. Learning matters more. Status and consumption matter less. You realize that the next 40 years will be shaped by the habits, relationships, and skills you develop now. Most people never think this way because they're trapped in short-term employment cycles, annual reviews, quarterly targets, monthly bills. Geographic arbitrage retirement forces long-term thinking because you're living a long-term strategy. This is psychologically uncomfortable at first and eventually becomes the greatest gift of the lifestyle. What I'm actually saying. Let me be absolutely clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying everyone should pursue geographic arbitrage retirement. I'm not saying $300,000 suffices for everyone in every circumstance. I'm not saying living abroad is superior to living in America. What I am saying, for a specific type of person, someone with flexibility around location, moderate spending needs, capacity for self-direction, and willingness to embrace different lifestyles, $300,000 is genuinely enough to make employment permanently optional indefinitely. This describes perhaps 20–30% of the population, not everyone, a meaningful minority. If you're in that minority, the standard retirement advice telling you that you need $2, $3 million is catastrophically wrong. It will keep you working for decades longer than necessary because it's based on assumptions that don't apply to you. The retirement planning industry uses the most expensive scenario as baseline and calls everyone else's situation a special case. I'm telling you the opposite. Geographic arbitrage retirement should be the baseline calculation, and expensive domestic retirement should be the special case requiring justification. If you choose to stay in America and work until you have $2 million, great. But make it a choice based on genuine preference rather than assumption based on conventional wisdom. Calculate what freedom would actually cost for you personally, given your willingness to be flexible on location. Then decide whether additional years of employment are worth the additional comfort of staying domestic. For some people, they are. For others, they're not. But most people never run the calculation. They just assume they need $2 million because that's what the calculators say. The final piece. Here's the final piece. $300,000 at 4% withdrawal generates $12,000 annually. That's baseline minimum, assuming zero additional income. But almost nobody in geographic arbitrage retirement generates zero additional income. The internet has made location-independent income trivially easy for anyone with marketable skills. Teaching English online pays $15, $25 hourly. Freelance writing pays $50, $100 hourly if you're decent. Consulting in whatever you did professionally pays $100, $300 hourly. Creating online courses generates passive income. Building small software products generates passive income. None of this requires traditional employment. All of it can be done on your schedule from anywhere with internet. If you generate an additional $3,000, $6,000 annually from occasional freelance work, your total annual funding goes from $12,000 to $15,000, $18,000. That extra cushion means you're not cutting it close. You have buffer for inflation, for occasional larger expenses, for travel, for whatever. Most people in geographic arbitrage retirement find they naturally generate some income from projects they find interesting, not because they have to, because when you're not burned out from employment, you have energy for creative and productive activity. That activity often generates income. The result, $300,000 plus modest income from interesting projects produces more comfortable and sustainable lifestyle than $12,000 from capital alone. Industry retirement calculators assume zero income after retirement, which is realistic for someone at 70, but unrealistic for someone at 40 or 50. People at 40 or 50 freed from mandatory employment usually find ways to generate income from activities they actually want to do. This income doesn't feel like work because it's optional and interesting, but it's real income that makes the $300,000 baseline more than sufficient. The real answer? So here's what I'm actually saying. $300,000 is enough to make employment optional. If you're willing to live in lower-cost locations, spend modestly, stay flexible, and remain open to generating some income from projects you find interesting. That's a specific set of conditions. Many people won't meet them or won't want to. But for people who do meet them, $300,000 is genuinely enough. Not theory, reality. Thousands of people are living this way right now. The Geographic Arbitrage retirement community exists and is growing. They're not suffering, they're not scraping by. They're living comfortable, interesting, meaningful lives with optional employment and abundant time. They're pursuing hobbies and relationships and learning and travel. They're healthier than their peers still grinding in corporate jobs. They're happier. They're proof that the conventional retirement timeline is optional, that you don't need $2 million, that freedom is available much sooner than you've been told. The question is whether you're willing to examine your assumptions, test your preferences, optimize your spending, and make unconventional choices. If you are, $300,000 in 2026 gives you a clear target and a short timeline. Start calculating, start saving, start testing locations, start building location-independent income skills. Freedom is closer than you think. The only question is whether you want it badly enough to pursue it.